Welcome to Bibliophiles Anonymous, episode 17. I'm Denise.
And I'm Jess.
So this week we're going to be discussing the latest Tavern Book Club book, and that's Sabriel by Garth Nix. We actually had something kind of neat happen over on our Twitter page.
Yes, I'm pretty excited. I tweeted that we were going to be discussing Sabriel, and I tweeted it. I included Garth Nix's Twitter handle in the tweet, and he replied to our tweet and said he hoped we continue to enjoy the book.
Yeah, I saw that, and it was like, whoa! We've talked to a couple of authors on Twitter now, and it's been really cool. So, maybe when we post this episode, maybe he'll maybe retweet that. That would be nice. So, hey Garth, if you're listening, we love the book. It was great. Woohoo!
Yes, we did. I loved it.
So, but before,
yeah, Jennifer Estep retweeted our episode to all of her followers. So
yeah, so who knows? We'll see.
Yeah.
But before we start talking about that, is there anything else you've been reading this week?
Actually, I did. I started the second book in Vicki Pettersson's Zodiac series, which is Taste of Night. And I've talked about this series before. I had read the first book. It follows a woman named Joanna Archer. She's basically a superhero. And the superheroes are organized into troops, and each troop has 12 members, and those 12 members each represent one of the astrological signs, which is a really neat concept.
Yeah.
Some stuff happens in the first book, and she ends up having to take on her sister's identity, which is a really interesting twist on things. And you find out that she's not entirely human. And the second book is kind of started off at a dead run, so it should be interesting.
That sounds interesting. I remember when you talked about the other one, and it sounded, I liked the whole concept of integrating the Zodiac stuff in there, along with a kind of a mystery sort of thing.
Yeah, and this goes towards my goal too, because I bought these at McKay 2 years ago. They've been sitting on my shelf for a while. So they qualify in that, reading stuff that I own but have never read goal that I have for this year.
Definitely. Well, I spent most of this week trying to finish Sabriel because we were originally going to record yesterday, and as of yesterday, I still hadn't finished it. Because it's just been crazy, and I've had a whole bunch of other stuff to do with school, because school started last week, and it's going great, but it's a lot of work, and trying to schedule it around the job and the family and everything else that I'm trying to do. I'm starting to wonder whether I've actually kind of hit the limit to the amount of things that I can undertake. So yeah, it took me a while to finish Sabriel, but I finally did late yesterday. But I was trying really, really hard to, not because I didn't want to finish Sabriel, because I did, and I really enjoyed it, but I was also at the same time reading City of Lost Souls by Cassandra. Clare.
Yeah.
And so that's the last published book in the Mortal Instruments series. There's another one that's coming out in 2014, but this is the last one that's out right now. And I kept getting pulled back into it, even if I was just going to say, I'm going to read this for maybe a few minutes just to relax for a little bit, and then I'll, read something that I actually have to concentrate on. No, that didn't happen. I'd end up reading it.
Not without.
No, oh my gosh. There's so many twists and turns, and you don't know who to believe and who's telling the truth and what. I'm at the very, very end where, and I don't want to give anything away, but they're starting the ritual. And so,
I have one word to say about the ending of this book.
Huh?
Cliffhanger.
Oh, I didn't want to hear that word.
Well, I had to deal with it when I got there, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to die before City of Heavenly Fire comes out, because what?
Great. Well, that was the thing, because I was not going to start City of Lost Souls until I finished a whole bunch of other stuff for school, and then before I finished Sabriel. But then I finished City of Fallen Angels. I was like, whoa, okay, now we need to put everything aside and continue on.
If figure out what the crap's going on. Yeah, I remember my feelings at the end of that one. I was like, I cannot wait until May to find out what's going to happen. I'm going to die.
Yeah,
I did, of course.
I just sat there for a second. I'm like, what just happened here? So, yeah, I'm going to partially blame Cassandra Clare for how long it took me to finish Sabriel, but that's all right, you know.
I'm sure she'll appreciate that.
And I will forgive her, even though it's her fault. But no, because there was like all of these little cliffhangers that just kept happening over and over. It's like, okay, I'll just read to the end of this chapter. Whoa, what just happened? I got to read to the next chapter. Whoa, what just happened? That kept over and over again.
There's so much stuff that starts being revealed in that one that you're just like, I can't put it down. I must read the next page.
Yeah, it's really good, and I'm not quite finished with it yet, obviously, but oh man, yeah.
I'm betting I will bet that when you do finish it, I will get a Facebook message. Oh my God!
Well, you got a Facebook message after I finished City of Fallen Angels.
Yes. But yeah, it was another cliffhanger, and I was just like, seriously, woman, you are the master of these because you're killing me.
And I will tell you that you had mentioned either on Facebook or somewhere where we were talking, that you mentioned that you had a crazy crackpot theory of who Brother Jeremiah was.
Yes.
I see where you're going now. And that's a really cool theory, and we're not going to go into it because that would mean you've read this series and the Infernal Devices series, so if you haven't read either of those, you'd probably be confused. So we're not going to go into it, but I'm just going to say, if you've read either one of those, tweet at us, and Jess can fill you in on her theory, because it's an interesting theory, and I can completely see it.
Yes. Well, there's something. There's some reason, because when she wrote these, she's like, oh, they're just loosely connected. But I am betting money that they're going to end up being more closely connected than she originally said because of that.
Yeah, that's a really, the way, because usually the Silent Brothers don't talk much about their opinions or what they think or any kind of emotions, but he seemed really drawn towards, we'll just say, a certain family.
Yeah.
And being concerned with a certain family, and the Silent Brothers usually aren't like that at all. They've given up every worldly connection that they have.
Yeah.
And so for him to be taking that much of an interest in a particular character because they are part of a particular family, yeah, I can definitely see it. So yeah, that's
and two, the Dark Artifices, her new Shadowhunter series that's coming out in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
One of the main characters, her name is Emma Carstairs.
Uh-huh.
Which was Jim's last name in the Infernal Devices. And he was the last of his family.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, I've read the first book in the Infernal Devices, but it was a really long time ago, and I'd never read the rest of them, so I don't remember much about all the connections.
While you're reading these, you need to read those.
I'm going to eventually.
Because when you do, you will understand. Because I posed this theory as, one certain person, and someone on Tumblr said, well, what if it's this other person? And I was like, I don't think so, because of Emma Carstairs being in the Dark Artifices. I said, I think she's the reason that it's the person I originally mentioned. She lends weight to my theory that, it's not, yeah. Anyway. Cassandra Clare, right, we won it. Oh, and we while we're talking about Cassandra Clare, we should mention the Bane Chronicles.
Oh, yes. This is so cool.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Yeah, so anybody who's read these books knows that there is a character he's a warlock, and his name is Magnus Bane. And he's pretty awesome.
Yes.
And recently they announced that, and now Cassandra Clare isn't doing it. She's going to be, helping out with the project, obviously. Yeah. But it's going to be Maureen Johnson and, who was the other one? Was it Sarah Reese Brennan?
I think so, maybe.
But anyway, a couple of other people I think are also going to be assisting, but those are the two main ones. With two other really good young adult novelists. And this whole big project, they're doing the Bane Chronicles, which is going to be a whole bunch of backstory, I'm guessing, on Magnus.
Yes.
And just kind of telling his story and all of the things, because he's in both series as well. And
Yeah.
as a warlock, they live for a really long time, like centuries. And so we're going to get to hear more about his story, which you know that there's a lot going on just because of the little things that he drops in here and there during the other stories. You know that he has just had a really crazy, jam-packed, full of stuff life. And
yeah.
So that's going to be really cool.
I think they're going to do 10 stories, and they're going to release them individually digitally.
Uh-huh.
And once the 10th one is out, they're going to release a bound copy of all of them together. I think is what that was the gist I got when I read the article.
Okay.
And that each of the 10 would have a different cover, but all 10 of them together would make one picture.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So if I understood correctly, that's how they were going to do. And she said that each one, when it came out digitally, would be fairly cheap. They would be priced between like $1 and $3.
Okay.
So I'm pretty excited about that. I will definitely have to read the Bane Chronicles because Magnus Bane is awesome.
He's the coolest, one of the coolest characters in that whole series. But he's just so interesting, and like I said, he keeps like just dropping in these little throwaway details, just like in a passing comment. Has nothing even to do with the situation that they're in or what's going on, but he'll just say this little throwaway comment, and you're like, whoa, wait, what did he just say? What did he do like back in 1647? He'll just like say something like that, and yeah, so his life has got to just be absolutely fascinating, and I can't wait to read about it.
Yeah, I was excited. I had to share that with you on Facebook when I saw it. I was like, oh my god, I gotta tell Denise.
Yeah, and I had heard about it before you had told me about it, but it was just kind of speculation. It wasn't official. So now I guess it's official. So, yay!
I guess we should probably talk about Sabriel now.
Let's go ahead and talk about Sabriel. We're done with our fangirling about Cassandra Clare, but I'm sure it's going to happen again at some point.
Oh, yes. At some point, we're actually going to have to discuss those books so that we can talk about all these things like my crackpot theories.
Yeah. But we will. We'll do that. Maybe we'll do that when it comes closer to the City of Bones movie coming out.
Yes.
That would be a good tie-in.
Yes.
So, okay. So we're going to move into our main topic now, which is Sabriel by Garth Nix. And there is a thread over at the Mallorean Tavern where we have been getting a lot of comments going on. Several people there have read it, and so far I think everybody's enjoyed it. And so let's get started. Let's talk a little bit about the beginning and who Sabriel is.
I think, did Savannah suggest this one?
I don't remember who recommended it. I think it was her.
I think it was her, and I know she said that she hasn't read it yet. She didn't read it for the book club, but she's read it like once a year since it came out.
Right. So it sounds like she probably did.
Yeah. But it's about a girl named Sabriel. She's going to a school in a place that I don't really know how to pronounce.
I'm going to guess it's Enselstier.
Yeah, something like that.
We'll go with that.
Yeah. And, well, the book starts out with the Borson rescuing a baby, which you find out is his child. And then we skip ahead to her final year.
Yes.
At Waverly College.
Mm-hmm.
And you find out that she's there and that she's learned magic and that her father's been visiting her and that her father is the Borson. So she's the baby that was rescued at the beginning of the book.
Uh-huh. Now we should say that in the beginning of the book, we know that her father is called Aborson, but we think that that's his name. And turns
Yes,
out that that's not his name, it's his title.
Yeah, you find out that, the abortion is a title, not a person. And it's actually passed down through families. And something happens while she is at Waverly, and a spirit brings her her father's sword and his bells. And that was something that I really, really liked about this book, was the idea of the necromancers using these bells.
Yes, because
And
the abortion and the line of abortions, like you said, they're necromancers, and what they do is basically try. What she does is she's trying to protect the living from the spirits of the dead who keep crossing over
yeah,
and trying to cause trouble. And there's one of the greater dead, as he's called, that is kind of the main bad guy who's out to get the abortions and to try and bring himself back to life and take over the world, sort of a deal. But one of the first things that they describe is this. It's almost like a sash that she wears across her chest, and it has these little pockets with all of these little bells in different sizes, and they make different musical notes, and there's different ways that you have to ring them, and they do different things to bind the dead or to make them go away. Different ones do different things, and that was one thing I really enjoyed in this book was the magic system,
yeah.
because it was really
Well,
different.
one of my favorite parts in the whole book was when she is going through all of the bells and talking about their names and what they do.
Hmm.
It was just it really struck me then that this was a system that I haven't seen before. And
No.
I've said this on a lot of podcasts, a lot of the stuff we've read, when you give me something I haven't seen before, I'm probably going to enjoy it.
Right. Yeah, this was definitely something that I've never seen, because you have seen books in the past that a character has to travel to the world of the dead.
Yeah.
That's not a new idea necessarily. But this was something completely different as far as how they traveled to the world of the dead, what it looked like, because
And
she spent a lot of time kind of going back and forth as her father was teaching her. Um, and there's 9 gates and
yes.
a river, and just the way that, and she has to go through like a lot of it towards the end of the book.
Yeah, I think she made it to the fourth. I think the fourth gate's where her dad was trapped.
But just the way that it's described, and each gate has something slightly different. Like one has a waterfall, and then one has kind of like a tidal wave, and one, I'm trying to remember the ones that they described, but each one was a different way that this water was pulling spirits or other people, other creatures through the world of the dead, and then finally you go past the 9th gate, and that's it. You can't come back anymore.
Yeah. And then there's the difference between free magic and charter magic. And I'm still not completely clear on how that works. I know that every time it's mentioned that Sabriel is doing charter magic, she talks about how it burns in her mouth, or not charter magic, free magic.
Uh-huh.
How the words burn her mouth, or they make her sick, or you don't really. It's not necessarily that it's evil magic. It's just different than charter magic.
Right. And Vector from the book club, we were talking about how we didn't quite understand what the difference was, and he said, you may not agree with my comparison, but I feel like the difference would be like between free software and, say, Windows, seen from the point of view of Bill Gates. And so I think
True.
with the charter magic, there's more of a system, it's more governed, there's more control, and free magic is just wild.
Yeah.
And there's no limits. It's a lot more dangerous.
Yeah.
But anyway,
And
so like you said, Sabriel receives her father's sword and bells, and she doesn't understand why until she
Yeah.
finds out that her father is not there anymore.
Yeah, she had no idea that the abortion was a title that was going to be passed down to her.
No.
He had not bothered to explain this to her. He had made her learn the Book of the Dead, but he didn't say, "Hey, one day you're gonna fill my shoes."
No, she just thought that, I mean, she thought maybe she would help like fill his shoes, but she didn't know that it was a title, that it was hereditary, and she didn't know how strongly it was connected to the Old Kingdom.
Yeah.
She knew that that's where he lived, but she didn't know how strongly the Haborsons were tied to the Old Kingdom and the old line of kings, because the Old Kingdom is basically completely fallen apart. And there's reasons for that, but you don't find out exactly why. It's just there's a wall that separates I can't even say it now, Ancestir, and again that may be completely
Yeah.
butchering it, but where Sabriel lives, and the Old Kingdom. And it's guarded, heavily guarded, and in order to cross over into the Old Kingdom, you have to go through this whole procedure with soldiers asking you why you're going and finding out what you're taking with you. And coming back the other way is even harder because they want to make sure that, nothing bad is coming into Ancestir.
Yeah.
But Sabriel decides that she has to go. Now, she's just a kid in school, but she has to go and find out what happened to her father. And because of all the bad stuff that has happened in the Old Kingdom, and in the beginning we don't know for sure what all that is, but she's not even sure exactly where her father's house is.
No.
But she's going to head out and find it.
Yeah, she says she can call a guide that will lead her there. And when she gets there, well, on the way, she finds out that one of the charter stones has been broken. And apparently, these charter stones are sort of what keeps the wall up and keeps charter magic stable.
Right.
And she finds this one that's been cracked. And apparently, it's really easy to cross into death near this charter stone. And when she does a spell there, and she does her protection, her circle, and her charter mark for north, the north side of her diamond, goes away, and she gets in trouble.
Yeah.
And she ends up being chased pretty much to her father's house by what was it, a mordicant?
Yes.
One of the greater dead. But they can't cross running water, so it's kind of handy that the house is on the other side of a river.
Yes. That was a good place to put it.
and when she gets there, she finds Mogget.
Now, Mogget is an interesting thing.
Yes, I like Mogget.
We're not exactly sure what Mogget is. He's in the form of a cat, and he has a collar that has a bell on it that's keeping him in the form of a cat and keeping him fairly calm and somewhat helpful. But there is one point where he gets the collar off. And
Actually,
then,
there's a couple of points where he gets the collar off.
Yeah, but the first time, he basically just turns into this being of free magic and goes after Sabriel because he's been imprisoned basically by the Aborson line as a servant and trapped in this form that he detests. But wearing the collar kind of keeps him not happy, but doesn't let him be aggressive at all. So he really resents it, even though he's being forced to play nice and help. But yeah, and especially towards the end with what happened with him and the big bad, I can't remember his name now. Caragor, that's it. And yeah, that was an interesting. I'm not sure exactly what I thought about that.
Yeah. At the end, we find out they do tell us what Mogget actually was. He's made out of free magic, but he's like a remnant of the magic that created the wall.
Right.
So that was kind of interesting to find out he wasn't just random free magic in the shape of a cat. He actually had a purpose. He was kind of a side effect of that. Right. But the whole thing with Caragor and that there are now two cats wearing collars with little bells on them.
Right. And neither one of them really, well, we don't know for sure about Caragor because he hasn't done anything as a cat yet, but you know that Mogget isn't happy about being trapped like that, and I'm going to just guess from his personality that Caragor's not going to like it either.
Well, no, probably not, considering he doesn't even want to be trapped in death.
Right. But we skipped over a lot of stuff here. So
well, yeah, we skipped over
the whole middle.
When she flies the paper wing, is that what it was called?
Yeah, it looks almost like a canoe with wings, but it's a flying machine that works with magic, and she uses it to get away from the Mordicant that was chasing her, but ends up crashing and falling into a sinkhole, and that's where she finds Touchstone.
Yes. Trapped as a figurehead on a boat.
Yes. And so he had been preserved, but he was partially trapped in death, and part of him was still alive and stuck to the front of a boat for some reason.
So, of course, Sabriel decides she has to save him. So she goes into death, and she finds his spirit, and she doesn't know who he really is, which we don't either at that point. But apparently, too, because him and Mogget and Sabriel they have a problem talking about certain things.
Yes.
Like, there's just certain things that they cannot talk about. The magic won't let them.
Mm-hmm. Especially with Mogget. I learned it. I noticed it more with Mogget than any of the other ones.
Yeah. Especially once but until they're out in the middle of the ocean, and then they can talk because the water removes the effect of basically the spell. And we learn a little more then. We still don't know who Touchstone is till closer to the end.
Right.
We do know that apparently Sabriel has fallen in love with him.
Right.
Which at first I really didn't see that coming.
She didn't seem the type.
She didn't even seem to like him.
No. But, they spent a lot of time together. They went through a lot together, and they survived a lot. So I guess it makes sense towards the end, but it kind of just, especially when they finally admitted to each other that they loved each other, it was just like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those, oh, by the way.
That kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, I'm happy for you, but whoa, okay.
Yeah, it was like, by the way, I love you. I hope that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, who says that?
But it was sweet, too. I mean, it was really cute.
But, yeah, it was, like I said, at first she was complaining because he wouldn't talk and he was being subservient to her, and it kind of annoyed her.
Right.
But apparently it all works out in the end.
Yeah. But they did find out, they found out that that Touchstone is like 200 years old.
Yeah.
Or he was trapped for 200 years, so he's not really 200 years old. He's like maybe 18 or so. But he's been trapped for 200 years, and he was able to give her some information about who had started all of the problems in the Old Kingdom. And it was actually Caragor, or as he was known when he was alive, was it
Roger?
Roger,
something.
Right. And he was the prince of the Old Kingdom. And he was the one that started doing the spells, which required a sacrifice in order to break the Charterstones. And he used his own family.
Because apparently he's evil.
Yeah.
And, he like, tricked Touchstone and his mother and his sisters and killed them all to use their blood to crack the great Charterstones. And you find out that there are certain bloodlines that are kind of receptacles for charter magic, I guess you would say.
Yeah, that's a good word.
And one of them was the abortion line.
Right.
One of them was the Clare. And one of them is the royal family. And the only ones left now, so everyone thought, were the Clare and the abortions. But you find out that Touchstone was the bastard son of the king. So he has royal blood. He's actually the royal family. So
all that's left of them.
Yeah. Caragor, when he comes out of death, he's going to kill Sabriel and Touchstone in order to finish breaking the Great Charter Stones. But it doesn't really work that way. They found out where his body was. His body was not in the Old Kingdom, which apparently they had never considered.
No.
They had been looking for it and never considered that it might be outside of the Old Kingdom. Well, they found it when, after Sabriel finds her father and gets him back in his body, he tells her that unless the Clare have got their winds confused, there's going to be a paper wing waiting for her. And she gets up there, and they're there, and they show her where his body is, and it turns out it's close to her school.
Right, which was completely unexpected, because they knew how connected he was to the Old Kingdom. I mean, that was where he was tapping into all of this magic. To find out that he was actually buried away from that source, and then trying to figure out what to do about it, because they knew that there was going to be some pretty heavy magic guarding it. And in the meantime, you have Coragor and a whole bunch of these beings called Shadow Hands, and all this big host of dead spirits that are about to take over the wall by force, basically. And so it becomes a race, in a sense. And
to see who can get to his body first.
Very exciting, actually.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, it was one of those that when it started, you it's a page turner. You got to find out what's going to happen. You can't stop now.
Yeah, because they're trying to figure out, they can't be out in the sunlight, and the problem with that is that they're using some of the charter magic or the free magic to create fog that's blocking the sun. So they only have a certain limited amount of time, and they don't have enough charter mages to help break the spell. They have some of the soldiers from the wall, but that's all they have, and there's not very many of them that are charter mages. So what does Sabriel decide to do? Head to the school.
Yeah, because there are charter mages there. A lot of her classmates and one of her teachers. And, with their help, there's enough power to break the seals on the coffin and do the last rites spell that'll burn the body. Well, they get to the school and they try to do this, and then Caragor and Mogget out of his collar in this big white blinding free magic blob,
for lack of a better word.
They
don't really describe him. It's just this big, mass of free magic. That's it.
Yeah, there's not really. That's basically what it is. It's just a mass of free magic, and he doesn't really have a form when he's not wearing the collar. But apparently he can take different forms, because I remember Aborson telling Sabriel that to him he always appeared to be an albino dwarf boy.
Yeah, I remember that. That was weird. So I guess
I was like, okay.
I guess he just sort of takes a different form depending on whichever abortion, since he's served the abortions for a long time, whichever form he thinks is going to appeal to them most in some way.
I guess.
Which is weird, but
yeah.
I'd pick a little cat too,
Well, yeah, and it makes me wonder if he's around Aborson and Sabriel at the same time, which one is he going to be, or are they both just going to see what they want to see?
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know.
Is she still going to see him as a cat while Aborson sees him as the dwarf boy, or what, But he shows up, and him and Caragor, he's trying to kill Caragor. Caragor wants to get rid of him, and they do this weird thing. Caragor basically eats him.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
And absorbs him, and that's when you get the whole, Sabriel still has the ring that Mogget gave her. That we know it turns into his collar. You can rebind him under the spell.
That's what saved her life when he got loose from it last time.
Yeah, she could put him back in the collar. Well, she gets this bright idea that since Caragor has absorbed Mogget, she's going to see if she can put the collar on it.
It's a crazy idea, but it just might work.
Yeah, but then you end up with 2 cats.
Yeah. Which, that was a completely unexpected turn of events.
Yeah.
You don't expect the big bad villain guy in a fantasy novel to end up as a house cat.
No, I was like, well, I mean, I expected maybe that it would destroy Caragor and turn Mogget back into a cat.
Right.
No, we got 2 cats.
See, when you have one of the greater dead as a house cat, what do you do with it?
See, that's what I want to know, because we don't find out. It's like, oh, in the end.
Pretty much.
You know, you've trapped this greater dead. He's contained. He's not out rampaging around trying to take over the world now. But he's a house cat. What are you going to do with him now? Are you going to take him back to the abortion's house and make him serve like Mogget does?
Yeah, it's not like you can take him to the pound or give him to a friend, or, I mean, you basically got the epitome of all evil, in this little cat form. So, and you can't make yourself forget that either.
No, I mean, it's not like you can say, here, have a cat, but never, under any circumstances, take his collar off. I mean, that's like giving somebody a mogwai and telling them not to feed it after midnight or get it wet.
Right.
They're gonna do it.
Yeah.
And then the big bad's gonna be back out. So I really want to read the rest of the series and find out if they mention what happens with Caragor.
Yeah, this is definitely one that I'm going to finish too, because there were a lot of things that I really, really liked about this book. I liked the we had mentioned before, I liked the system of magic. It was something that was a bit different from what I'd read before. And I liked the contrast between the kind of modern Ancestral, because they had electricity and cars, and it's a fairly modern place, which is unusual sometimes in a fantasy novel. But then you have the Old Kingdom, and it's very well, it's in ruins now, but it was a much different, more ancient place, and I want to learn more about it, because we don't know hardly anything, because it's been in ruins for so long that most people don't talk about it, they don't learn about it, and they avoid it at all costs. So I want to know more about that place. And I have a feeling that the next books are going to explore it more. I don't know anything about them, but I just have a feeling that we're going to have to learn more about that area.
Yeah, well, I mean, because they're going to have to do something about all the broken charter stones. I mean, there's a lot left undone. I mean, and then the whole they're going to have to they're probably going to crown Touchstone king if they figured out that he is of that bloodline.
Right. Now, I'm trying to remember, and unless I missed it, we never learned what his real name was, did we?
No, I don't believe we did.
I want to know what his real name was, and I want to know what Sabriel's father's real name was, because we thought that it was Aborson for so long, but I'm just really curious, because, Sabriel's the Aborson now, but before she was the Aborson, she was Sabriel. I just wonder more about him,
Yeah, like, I'm with you. I mean, it's not like a major plot point, but I want to know what his name was.
Yeah, that's it.
Because now that we know the Aborson is more of a title than a name, even though Sabriel keeps trying to tell everybody to call her Sabriel and not Aborson.
Yeah, she's like, I'm really not ready for this responsibility, even though it's technically mine. So just quit reminding me of it all the time.
Yeah, Sabriel. Yeah. My father's not dead. I'm going to save him. Which she does, but he only had 1,000, or no, it was 100 heartbeats, wasn't it?
Yeah. Which I felt sad about that. I mean, you kind of knew that she was gearing up to fill his place. It was pretty obvious that's what it was leading to, but there was a part of me that was just hoping that there was going to be some way to save him completely, and then they could work together.
Yeah.
But, you can't have everything.
so that he could, actually teach her about being the abortion.
Yeah. Because she knows a lot more than she did before she started out on this, but it's still, most of her knowledge is just what she's learned in books, and she doesn't have a lot of field experience, as it were.
Yeah.
And so she's going to have to do a lot of that on her own, which is scary. Not that I don't think she can do it. I'm pretty sure she can, but yeah, it would have been nice for her to have just a little bit more help with that.
Yeah. I think Savannah said that Sabriel and Touchstone are in the rest of the books, but they're not the central characters.
Uh-huh.
So, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I definitely want to track them down.
Well, I know my library has them. They have the omnibus with all 3 books. And what's funny is I picked it up not realizing that we were going to be doing Sabriel as a book club book. And read the blurb, and I'm like, this is interesting. Maybe I'll get it. And then I was like, no, I'm not going to get it today. I'm going to wait. And then I get home, and I get on the tavern, and I realize, oh, hey, I almost got that at the library. We're not doing that for like a month. I might want to wait and not read it now. So I'm going to probably just pick it up at the library, because as soon as I read Fire, I'm going to get Bitter Blue anyway. So I can get Bitter Blue and get that and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Or 2 books with 1 trip. Whatever.
Well, before we finished up our discussion, I wanted to just go into some of the things that the folks over at the tavern were talking about with this book. So far in the conversation, we've had Savannah, and then we've had Vector, who I think I mentioned is something he said earlier. But, well, just to give you some of what they said, Vector said that he enjoyed it a lot from the very start. And then he said, I like the idea of the wall dividing the magic old kingdom and the mundane ancestral, I can still not pronounce that, Ancestier, or something, with its technology. Failing when the wind came from the old kingdom, I liked the irony that the magically gifted Sabriel learned magic, among other things, in the school in Ancestier. Imagine Harry Potter learning charms from muggles but still having to face Voldemort. That's quite a bit on the scary side.
Well, yeah, it really is.
And then Savannah also made a good point. She said, I also thought Nix did a really good job making Sabriel both a very young, inexperienced woman and the heroine of the book. Sometimes young protagonists come off as too childish or too mature, but I thought that Sabriel managed to hit the perfect balance between inexperience and competence. Which I would agree. I would agree with that completely, because, she's right. Sometimes when you have a younger character, they know too much, or they can be too almost annoyingly childish.
Yeah.
But never at any time did she annoy me in that way, because, I mean, obviously she kind of went into this blindly and thought that she'd be able to handle it, even though she doesn't really know what she's doing, which that's just part of being young. But she was also still knowledgeable enough that she had just enough to get there to make it through.
Yeah. She never really struck me. She struck me as she was mature for her age, but not so much so that it was unrealistic.
Right.
She had been on her own at this school since she was very small. She saw her father, if he did the sending visits, so she saw him quite a bit that way, and then like 2 or 3 times a year he actually physically came to visit her. So, I mean, I think like that would make you be more mature.
Right. And
it was a believable level of maturity. She, like I said, she was a little more mature than her age, but it worked because there was a reason for it. I mean, you can understand why she was.
Well, she was also so much different from the other students in her school, and it was kind of known that her father was this mysterious person, and I think that kind of made her a bit solitary, which that can often make you, once you have to rely more just on yourself, yeah. that can sometimes make you seem a bit older than your age.
All in all, I really enjoyed it, and I definitely want to finish the series.
Yeah, me too. This is definitely one I'm going to finish.
To find out if he's written anything else.
I trying to remember. I know I looked because I was trying to see how many books were in this series. Okay, there are 4 books in the abortion series. Oh wait, no, there's 3 that are published. A 4th one that's coming out in 2014.
Ooh, a new one.
Mm-hmm. And so Sabriel was the first book. Second book is called Lirael, Lirael, however you pronounce that. The third book, the third book is Abortion, and then the new one coming out is, I just had it, is Clariel, who I think is another character. I think these are all named after characters.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to look for those, because I'm pretty sure the one in the library, yeah, obviously it is, because the new one's not out yet. It has just the first 3 in it. So, I'll definitely have to look for the 4th one when it comes out.
And then,
I liked it.
And then he has a couple of other series, it looks like, that he's written. One is called The Keys to the Kingdom series, and there's 7 books. And that one looks like they have something to do with, like, 7 days of the week. Like, the first one is Mr. Monday, and then Grim Tuesday, Drowned Wednesday, Sir Thursday, Lady Friday, Superior Saturday, and Lord Sunday.
I'll have to look for those too.
I don't know what that's all about, but they sound interesting. And then there's another series he's written, the 7th Tower series, that has 6 books in it. So, yeah, he's written quite a few things.
Well, my library probably doesn't have very many of them, so I'll have to find them somewhere else, I'm sure. My library really needs to get into this digital lending thing, because that would be awesome.
I have to say, I like my libraries. The only problem with it is that sometimes there is a really, really long waiting list for books.
Well, still, digital lending, I wouldn't have to go all the way to the library to borrow them.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, that would save me a trip over there. Sometimes I don't feel like putting clothes on and going anywhere.
Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. So just to summarize, we both really, really like this book. So
yes.
Go out there and read it, and read some other books by Garth Nix, because we like what we've seen so far.
Yes, indeedy. So, I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads.
Oh, I need to do that on Goodreads. Yeah, I'm planning on giving it 5 stars too. I just haven't done it yet. But as I said when we first started talking, we do have a thread discussing this over at the Mallorean Tavern. That web address again is www.maltavern.com. So head on over there and let us know what you thought of this book.
Yes.
Because so far there's only 4 of us that are discussing it, so please come join us. We need more people. And there's other ways you can contact us as well. We would love to get some feedback. We haven't gotten a lot of feedback yet, and we would love to know what you guys think of the podcast, either this episode or any of the other episodes that we've done so far. And you can email us. Our email is bibliophiles.podcast@gmail.com. You can also visit our website, which is www.bibliophiles-anonymous.com. And we're also on Twitter @BibAnonPodcast. So you can reach us at any of those places. Please give us some feedback. Also, we're also looking for some book recommendations for some more discussions. We have several other book club books coming up. We start the new book club every 15th of the month, and there's a list up at the tavern for those as well. But we're also looking for other books to discuss in between those. So,
or any other topics you can think of, any bookish topics.
Sure.
We'll take that too.
Well, yeah, we love getting ideas and different suggestions to try and make the podcast better. So anything you want to hear us talk about, let us know.
Yep, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.